It sounds unthinkable. Facing enemy machine guns with only a helmet, a flak vest, and the open sky beneath your boots, yet that is exactly what door gunners in Vietnam did every single mission. Between the chopping blades and the relentless roar of an M60, dumping 100 rounds in 11 seconds, these crews wielded terrifying firepower, but sat half-exposed, night after night, into landing zones where over half of all choppers were shot at under 500 feet. No shields, not enough armor. Sometimes, not enough time to decide if a fleeting figure in the jungle was friend, foe, or a child. This is the brutal reality behind the door gunner legend. So what did it take to survive even one flight? The journey from raw recruit to combat-ready door gunner began with a crash course in survival, mechanics, and firepower. Every new gunner had to master the basics fast: how to handle the M60 machine gun, how to keep it running, and how to make every round count. The M60, weighing in at 23 pounds, could burn through a 100-round belt in just 11 seconds. Gunners learned to strip and reassemble the weapon blindfolded, cleaning carbon from the gas system and checking the feed tray for jams that could turn deadly in the air. Maintenance was not just a chore, it was the difference between life and death when the helicopter was taking fire. Training hammered in the essentials of communication. The intercom system tied the crew together, letting the pilot, co-pilot, crew chief, and gunner coordinate in the chaos of flight. Every gunner learned the clock system on day one, calling out threats and targets by the hour, with the nose of the helicopter as 12 o'clock. A simple call like 3 o'clock low could mean the difference between a safe landing and a disaster. The crew drilled these calls until they were automatic because hesitation cost lives. Formation flying brought its own set of demands. Gunners needed to track other aircraft, scan the jungle for muzzle flashes or movement, and keep their fields of fire clear of friendly birds. The open doorway was both vantage point and vulnerability. The gunner's job was to scan constantly, eyes sweeping the tree line, hands ready on the trigger, body braced against the vibration and wind. Spotting a hidden enemy meant reacting in seconds, often without a second look. Theory said to fire in short bursts, 5 to 7 rounds, then pause, check, adjust. In practice, it was about managing limited ammunition while laying down enough fire to keep the enemy's head down. With every 5th round a tracer, gunners could see their shots arcing into the green, adjusting on the fly. Assistant gunners, when available, helped feed belts, clear jams, and keep the M60 cool enough to keep firing. Every mission demanded discipline, because once the ammo was gone, there were no second chances. The training was relentless, but it had to be. Only those who learned fast enough would be ready when the door slid open over a hot landing zone. Enemy fire in Vietnam came in many forms, but nothing haunted a door gunner like the heavy machine guns and anti-aircraft cannons waiting below. The DSHK 12.7mm, known as the Soviet .50 caliber, could punch through 20 millimeters of steel at 500 meters, more than enough to rip through a Huey's thin skin or the so-called chicken plates that weighed up to 30 pounds. Most gunners wore flak jackets, but these could only stop shrapnel or pistol rounds. Against a DSHK or the even larger 23mm anti-aircraft guns, they might as well have been wearing canvas. Helicopter designers kept armor to a minimum to save weight, so there were no bulletproof shields, just the open air and a thin strap holding you in. The real danger zone was always the landing zone. Takeoffs and touchdowns meant hovering low, slow, and exposed. The enemy knew it too. They set up heavy guns on likely approach paths, overlapping their fields of fire so that every chopper coming in or out had to run the gauntlet. Zu-23-2 cannons could throw out 400 rounds per minute, each shell big enough to shred a tail boom or detonate a fuel cell. Even a single hit could turn a slick into a fireball. By 1970, more than 1,500 helicopters had been shot down, many by these weapons. Door gunners learned to scan for muzzle flashes in the tree line, calling out directions by the clock system, but often the first sign was the whip crack of rounds passing through the cabin or the sudden lurch of a hit. Ammunition discipline became a matter of survival. Gunners wanted to keep a wall of fire between their aircraft and the enemy, but every burst burned through precious rounds. The M60's belt might last 11 seconds at full rate. If you emptied your cans too soon, you'd be left with nothing but a sidearm while the enemy kept firing. Some gunners tried to ration their belts, firing only at the biggest threats. Others let loose, hoping sheer volume would keep heads down. Meanwhile, the enemy aimed for the open doors, knowing that one lucky shot could take out the gunner, the crew chief, or even hit the pilot. Identifying targets was another kind of risk. The jungle hid everything. Enemy gunners, civilians, even children forced into carrying weapons. There was no night vision, no thermal scopes, just a split second to decide if the movement below was a threat or not. The wrong call could mean disaster, either for the crew or for innocents on the ground. In this environment, more than half of all helicopter hits came at altitudes between 100 and 500 feet, right where door gunners did their work. Every mission was a gamble, and the odds only got worse the longer you stayed in the fight. A door gunner's survival often came down to seconds, instinct, and sometimes sheer luck. Two stories from the war pull back the curtain on just how unpredictable that line between life and death could be. The first began with a moment of compassion. After a chaotic firefight, a young gunner spotted a wounded enemy soldier on the ground below. Without a word to his crew, he unclipped, leapt from the helicopter, and ran to help. The pilot, focused on the hot zone and unaware he was one man short, took off, leaving the gunner and the wounded man behind. Alone, deep in enemy territory. For nearly half an hour, the gunner crouched in the grass, pistol in hand, listening to the distant thump of helicopters and the closer rustle of unseen movement. When his crew finally realized he was missing, they circled back and found him exactly where he'd landed, still guarding the enemy he'd tried to save. That day, the only thing standing between him and capture was a single .38 revolver and the hope his crew would return. Some incidents defied belief. One gunner, thrown from his helicopter during a low pass, crashed through the jungle canopy and landed squarely on top of two Viet Cong soldiers. The impact knocked the wind out of all three, but the gunner recovered first. He grabbed a weapon, dispatched both stunned enemies, and dragged himself into cover. For what felt like an eternity, he waited, clutching his makeshift prize until the familiar sound of rotor blades signaled his rescue. The story made the rounds back at base. No one would have believed it if they hadn't seen the battered gunner, grinning and covered in mud, climb back aboard. Both men returned to their units, but neither left the war behind. The randomness of survival, being left behind by your own crew, or surviving a fall only because you landed on someone else, etched scars that didn't fade with time. For Vietnam's door gunners, every mission was a reminder. Fate played by its own rules, and sometimes the only difference between a story told and a name on the wall was a single choice or a twist of fortune. The numbers tell only part of the story. For door gunners, survival meant living with the memory of what it took to stay alive. Most missions passed in a blur of endless green, the drone of rotors, and the rattle of the M60. But when the shooting started, everything changed in a heartbeat. Veterans remember the rule: 90% monotony, 10% terror. That 10% left its mark. Every landing zone brought the same calculation. The odds were not good. More than half of all helicopters hit in Vietnam took fire while flying between 100 and 500 feet, right where door gunners worked. Armor was a myth. The so-called chicken plates and flak jackets offered little more than false hope. The enemy's .50 caliber rounds and 23mm shells cut through them like paper. Some gunners joked about their life expectancy being measured in minutes, not months. The humor did not last long. Losses were constant. The Vietnam Helicopter Pilots Association estimates about 2,700 non-pilot crew members, mostly crew chiefs and gunners, were killed during the war. That is about 7% of all American names on the wall. For those who survived, the faces of lost friends did not fade. Some gunners flew hundreds of missions, watching new guys come and go, learning not to get too close because the next empty seat might be theirs. After a close call, some gunners would sit in silence, helmet in their lap, hands still shaking. The adrenaline took hours to wear off. Others found themselves staring at the jungle below, numb, waiting for another mission to break the cycle. The routine was the same: fly, fight, survive, repeat. But the fear never really left. It just settled into the background, waiting for the next burst of gunfire, the next friend lost, the next mission that might be their last. Many after-action reports remain classified, and precise numbers on non-fatal injuries or long-term psychological impacts are still incomplete. What is clear is that the door gunner's experience, characterized by high risk, constant vigilance, and moments of both monotony and terror, marked a turning point in aerial warfare. Today, modern helicopter crews benefit from improved armor, technology, and mental health awareness. But the core burden and bravery of the Vietnam door gunners remain documented in the archival record. Their story stands as a testament to the realities of combat roles that balance overwhelming firepower with profound vulnerability.